So, the moment everyone has been waiting for. Canada has an Islamic Party, or doesn't have yet, is about to get one. In Ontario, the Islamic Party of Ontario has sort of passed the first stage of ratification into a new political party in Canada. And this has created some controversy, as it probably should. Now, I'm going to offer the opinion quite seriously, now for non-serious reasons as well. I do support a formation of an Islamic Party of Canada. Not that I would support the party, but my view, as I'm going to explain to you, is I am going to be happier that they have an Islamic Party of Canada, because we already have Islamist politicians. This will just, with an Islamic Party of Canada, with the charter I'm about to read to you, there's going to be no more hiding the ball on this one. Okay, this one's pretty in your face. It's a much easier entity to fight, right? It's easier to argue against the Islamic Party of Canada when they say, hey, this is what we are trying to do, A, B, C, D, than someone like Iqra Khalid or Omar Al-Ghabra, who are basically doing this Islamist nonsense, but through the guise of liberalism and whatever. So, yes, they're connected to the Muslim Brotherhood. Yes, they're connected to Jamaat al-Islami. Yes, we'll go over all of that, who founds them, who runs this, what do they say, who do they say it about, and all that. So first thing you need to know is they've only passed stage one, and this is in Ontario. So this will be an Ontario party. And what does this mean? So as a provincial party, they have or as a political party in Canada, they would have the ability to sort of collect donations and issue tax-free receipts. So this is sort of one of the downsides, is you can have people openly donating to Islamist causes and then getting a tax receipt for that. However, we have enough charities, well, they lose their charity thing, like the ICNA. The ICNA lost its charitable status a while ago. The ISNA recently got hit, lost its charitable status. It's on suspension for funding terrorism. At least these will be, as a political party, like, if the money here goes to terrorism, we can get major indictments, whereas a lot of charities have been funding terrorism out the wazoo for a long time, and we just, it's like me and Tom Quiggin are angry about it, and I guess the people here watching. So that's one of the downsides, is they will get a tax-free receipt. But on the upsides is we can clearly see by numbers, okay, X percent of people openly support Islamism. And Islamism, by definition of Sharia law, gender segregation, reduced rights for homosexuals, like all the things that we're going to read, it's a very clear affirmation that people support this. I really want to read the charter too soon because it's pretty funny. And I'm gonna do a little I was right thing. With an Islam party coming to Canada, if you were probably one of my really left-wing family members who's not watching this right now, but if my brother is watching, one of the things we tend to argue about is electoral reform. One of the best things Justin Trudeau did was reverse himself on electoral reform. Electoral reform, in my opinion, is a crazy thing to do. We have a very stable country. It tends to lean towards the center, very reasonable. Now, in a sort of proportional representation system, I hate proportional representation. The way that means is, like, whatever proportion of the vote you get, you would actually get a representation in the caucus. But if I feel like this having the first past the post writing system keeps the crazies out. Because if you have proportional representation, what starts an Islamic Party from forming and getting a few Islamist politicians into the government? This is what is in Belgium. They have Islamist parties in Belgium, and there's proportional representation. So they have actual Sharia law. We're not ISIS, but like we're just ISIS without the killing everyone. We're just the end game there. Right? In Canada, you're going to get an Islamist party if you have proportional representation. Also, like, you'll get more socialism. And then what's to stop someone from starting an anti-Islam party? Again, my brother, who is probably not watching right now, would. All the family, there's not going to be an Islamist party if there's proportional representation. Well, now there's an Islamist party without that. And of course, this is a bad idea. So good job on Justin Trudeau for lying to the Canadian public on electoral reform. Now, let's get into what the hell these lunatics are saying about Canada. So on the Islamic Party of Canada, this is the manifesto, this is what they say, this is them talking about them, this isn't me, crazy, Donald Trump, whatever. The first thing they say in terms of principles and policies, the very first principle is Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms starts with, whereas in Canada, founded upon principles that recognize the supremacy of God and the rule of law, the Islamic Party of Ontario believes, quote, supremacy of God and understands that our constitutional requirement make all the rule of laws of the province and federal in obedience according to the will of God. So, right there, all laws based according to God's will. And then number two, believing in God's supremacy, believing in his oneness, his authority, his obedience in all spheres of life. Okay, all spheres of life. God is himself Did they just misgender God? Okay. Strike one. Strike one, all right? I'm up to here with the Muslim Brotherhood, okay? Do you know how many trans women X people of color that excludes? It should be the Muslim peoplehood. Mark it down. Okay. God and Zur Self, the guide to set fundamental principles of outlook of life, practices, private life, public life, political, social, education, economic, health, and environment, and the justice system in Quranic term known as the Deen. Okay, there it is. No hiding the ball here. I'm going to rephrase that, or go over this again. This is Sharia law in all aspects of life, no exceptions, according to how it's written by the Quran. Now, it goes on to say that the Quran is the only perfect book, and the Quran means exactly what the Quran says, word for word. There is no misinterpreting the Quran. What it says means exactly 100%. It is outlined there. So this is the fundamental principle of the Islamic Party. It's basically, number one, Sharia law. They're not hiding the ball. This isn't Iqra Khalid, Omar al-Ghabir, any of those nonsense Islamist politicians we have. This is, I'm connected to the Muslim Brotherhood, Sharia law. So, set fundamental principles of outlook and practice in private and public life, right? So your private life and your public life will be governed by the Islamic Party of Canada. Political, social, education, economy, health, environment, and the justice system, right? Sharia law and justice system. God sent to Abraham some religious ramblings. Okay, here's another one. So we can clear up what Islam means. So this is what the Islamic Party of Canada says Islam means. The word Islam means surrender and peace. That means Islam requires surrender to God to attain peace. This is the Deen taught by all the messengers and prophets of God and his nations. Deen means like the law that they're setting out. More religious rambling. So you heard it there. That Islam means surrender to peace. And they're also quite state here that peace won't come unless we all surrender to Islam. That's not me saying that. That's not crazy. Whatever. They've said there's no peace until everyone surrenders to Islam. So complete capitulation to Islamic values. This will bring peace. Blah, blah, blah. Religious rambling. Islam, I love this. This is just like, isn't this like blasphemy by Islamic standards? Or is Islamists just this crazy and biblically illiterate that I just don't understand the statement. Maybe an Islamic scholar can help me with the reasoning here. But it says, Islam is the only and oldest deen of God brought and stated by Adam, peace be upon him, the first man and the messenger of God, created by God without mother or father, and the same deen brought by Jesus before Muhammad, who bore without a father. It is a misconception that Islam is a religion created by Muhammad. Islam is the only way to attain peace and justice and provides laws without any prejudice. So basically saying, Islam is the only and oldest religion ever. Don't they know that they based it off Judaism and Christianity? Like, I think if Jesus is one of your prophets, and spoiler alert, if you guys haven't read through the Bible yet, spoilers, Jesus starts Christianity. So, also, there's an Old Testament and a New Testament, and the Old Testament came before the New Testament, as probably needs to be explained to the Islamic Party, and both of those came before the Quran. So I'm not sure if time is linear in the Quran or not, but we're going to have to figure that one out together. So you heard it here first. Islam is older than Christianity and Judaism, even though it came after, because I don't know. I don't have any. Okay, here's another. We understand and believe that Islam is the native deen, so religion, of Ontario and Canada. And there it is, yes. Islam was the native religion brought by the pilgrims into Ontario. So you might think, hey, weren't the Algonquin here before the Europeans, and weren't the Europeans who become Christian? No, the Algonquins were apparently Muslims worshipping Muhammad, and the people and the Europeans who came here, those giant crucifixes, really musifixes, which is my new word for Muslim crucifixes. Musifixes. Trademark me. Please don't kill me for blasphemy. Well, they're probably going to try anyway. More religious rambling, blah, blah, blah. Quran is the latest and final edition of the divine books. Again, it's the oldest and the last, right? It's the first and the last, and the only. Yeah, this is where it says it's 100% pure form. It can't be modernized and memorized. This is just talking about, yeah, they say the Quran. It is what it is. It's perfect in Arabic. We understand it. It is 100% accurate. So what's in the Quran is in the Quran. So when they talk about laws and they talk about making homosexuality illegal here, and they say the Quran is 100%. If you look at the Quran and the Surah and the Hadith, which they also say will be part of the law, they strictly speak, say, execution, public execution for homosexuality. So will the left, will the LGBTQIAIFEP, will they be upset at the prospect of being murdered by the Islamic Party? We'll have to see if we'll have to see how intersectionality works. This is gays versus Muslims, round 3. I'm betting on the Muslims, because remember when the nightclub shooting in Florida happened, when a guy went in and said, "I'm going to kill all these gays because I'm Muslim and their homosexuality is against Islam." Boom, boom, boom. Called the police, said, "Hey, police, I'm currently committing the worst mass shooting in American history. I'm doing it because I love these ISIS people and what they're saying. I'm being real Muslim right now. Again, I'm killing these homosexuals for Islam. Just want to let you know that I'm doing that." Basically took 15 minutes out of killing people, just so we know. Pew, pew, pew. Then everyone's like, radical Christianity is behind this. And so they won. I'm betting track record is unstoppable. In the Oppression Olympics, the Muslims are coming home with gold medals. They have been one of the most prolific and well-coordinated teams at the Oppression Olympics in the last few years that you really can't bet against them. It's like Usain Bolt against a group of toddlers at this point. Okay, yeah, this says, okay, the Sunnah and the Quran and the Hadith are all whatever. Islamic Party of Ontario sets its policy of governance, economy, social justice. Because, of course, what says social justice like chopping off the head of your favorite gay people? Human dignity, healthcare, family life, environment, and justice according to the Quran and Sunnah. Again, so all of this stuff will be dictated by the Quran and the Sunnah. And here's, okay, so I said no hiding the ball. There's a little bit of hiding the ball right here, right? After it goes through all of this, it says, Islamic Party of Ontario believes in the rights and freedoms of all faith and religious beliefs to practice their own faith in their private lives and the establishment of places of worship with full protection of life, wealth, and dignity. Oh, I just read that again. They said private lives. They didn't specify having religious rights in public, which again would that's in the Quran. I guess I skimmed over that. But one of the things people should know is, so in Islam, according to the Quran, yes, other religions are respected, but those are only, as they say, people of the book, Jews and Christians. Hindus, Buddhists, atheists, they are non-believers and must be humiliated. They have no rights in the Quran. Now, you might think, oh, so I have the right to practice Christianity. Not exactly. You have the right to practice Christianity in Islam, but you're not allowed to believe that Jesus is the Son of God. That counts as blasphemy in Sharia law. So you're allowed to be Christian, you're just not allowed to believe that Jesus is the Son of God, right? This is sort of the hiding the ball thing. We believe in all types of religious freedom, but they said in private. You could do what you want in private, but in public, Sharia town. All right. All human beings are created equal, Adam and Eve, blah, blah, blah. Okay, here's a great one. They actually say this in a charter of a political party in the year 2019, because it's the year 2019. This is a point, this phrase actually pops up in a political party. The relationship established under marriage contract is a sacred union between a man and a woman. God made Adam and Eve, not Adam and Steve. Yes, the phrase Adam and Eve, not Adam and Steve, just popped up in a real political party, and the left will never, ever, ever, ever criticize this. Interest-free capital in a worker partnership economy, neither capitalism or communism. That's one of the things, we're not communists or we're not capitalists. I've gone over the whole how no interest thing doesn't work. It's silly. And even in the Islamic countries that are like really crazy and no interest, there is interest in Saudi Arabia and Iran. They call it like the tax or the gift tax, but they're like economies collapse without interest. It's just what happens. Okay. So let's get into policies. This is under social policies. The family system should be whatever. Marriage unions. We need to protect marriage. The sexual relationship is only between men and women. This relationship should be protected with the marriage contract by clearly defining rights and responsibilities of both men and women. Am I allowed to beat my wife? Is there any, what's his face? Can the imam in charge of this let me know? What are the relationships between the men and women? Is wife beating ever acceptable? Let me know. Let me know your comments. Something. Allah has created two genders, men and women. Any physical defect in any organ in a person doesn't change one's gender identification and sexual orientation. All the communities in the faith believe in it. Modern science proves it. The concept of gender identity, or seven-color gender, is a false concept. Hey, crazy Muslims, you're getting a bit better. This is where I love. So, I'm going to go into commentary off this, but this is like essentially, this is the left's new crazy religious dogma, the sort of the gender identity stuff coming from virology. No, the Islam Party and like the radical fundamentalist Christians of 10 years ago, they don't do this anymore. All those crazy Christians do is try and uphold Western civilization with a sense of strong civic duty. How dare they? But this is where they're going to say this. And everyone else gets criticized for saying this. Like, I've been saying this for years now. Most reasonable people have said this. Like, yes, okay, we understand. Intersex people exist. And yes, you might feel like a man or woman, and I don't care what you do in your personal life, but don't tell me that men and women is just a fake concept. And we get blasted for being evil for doing this. Will there be any type of response from the trans radical activist community onto a new political party being formed saying basically your entire ideology is bullshit and we're going to kill all the gays? Will they protest that? Will they or won't they? We're going to play a game. We'll see. Obscenity, vulgarity, nudity, and perversion must be checked. Liquor, drugs, adultery, gambling, etc. should be banned in society. So no gambling, alcohol will be banned, adultery will now become a crime. What's the punishment for adultery? Stone the woman to death. Yes, what a lovely, lovely punishment. And if you go to the website of the ICNA in Canada, Islamic Circle of North America, they lost charitable status, but they do some really excellent work on this thing. So you might be saying, what if your wife is pregnant and she cheats on you? Well, then she gives birth and then is stoned to death right after. Right? See? Progressive. Very progressive. Basically, complete ban on abortion. That's another thing. Total ban on abortion. And this is another interesting thing, is they came out and said no abortion. And like, okay, I don't care what people's opinions are on abortion, but the only important thing to note here is we had a summer jobs program in Canada where you weren't allowed to receive federal funds if you were against abortion. Now, we have a new political party that's coming out and saying staunchly against abortion. Fine, as your rights. And I believe, even crazy Islamists have the right to political parties in Canada because we're a free country. But at least they're not hiding the ball here, right? The other Islamists will lie and say, oh, yeah, sure, abortion, we don't know. Like, they'll go and preach against abortion. They'll say this stuff. But when the federal government asks, are you for abortion? They're like, yeah, sure, abortions. Give us your money, stupid Canadians. So this is why I kind of support this party existing, because there's so much less hiding the ball. They're just open up front. We're going to destroy the West, Sharia law, kill the gays, something. School. Let me see. Okay. Here's in their education system. The experience and surveys show that boys only and girls only schools produce much better results. We will support a gradual transition from coeducation to gender-specific schools. There you go. We're going to separate the genders totally. So, women, we're going to separate boys and girls in schools because a survey that this crazy Muslim read once says that's a good idea. Economy, neither capitalism nor communism. We're going to, we're going to read the Quran. We're going to read the Quran, and that's going to be the economy. This is, sadly, I will say the Islamic Party of Canada, their economic system is actually better thought out and more well-founded than Justin Trudeau's right now. Now, you might say, that's ridiculous. But at least it says, read the Quran. That's better than, the budget will balance itself. That's marginally better. Marginally better. Now, they're both going to suck and collapse. But at least read the Quran as an actual plan. Barely. Something. Interest-free as economy. Brotherhood and sisterhood. Brother and sister? You mean siblinghood. Okay? Again, I'm with this gender-specific language. Come on. Yeah, just more like interest creates recessions. Just a bunch of stupid rambling. Labor and capital. Blah 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 blah. Food, shelter, and dignity for all. Sure, whatever. Measures to reach and partner with third world countries market having several billion populations. I don't know what that means. Like, we're going to partner with... I guess that means mass migration of more Islamists into Canada. That's probably what it means. But you don't need an Islamist party for that. You have a Liberal Party. So I don't know what you're doing. Health. We believe in curing and preventing diseases. Oh, goody! Because no one else does. Thanks, Muslim Party of Canada, for your groundbreaking believing in medicine policy. Oh, that's great. That's great. Blah, blah, blah. Justice and rights. Okay, goal. Justice and rights. This is a good one. A crime-free and peaceful Ontario. Whoopee-doo. Justice is not crime and punishment. It includes protection of life, property, dignity, and places of worship of all religious faiths and non-faith. Rights come with responsibility and protection of well-being and all human well-being. Democratic and human rights of a person's individual life will be protected unless it transgresses on the rights of property or dignity of others. Okay, here we go. Here's the winner. A strict law will be suggested to ban blasphemy of any religious symbols and personalities. So, if you thought you could draw the Prophet Muhammad, well, it's probably maybe still is a crime under Trudeau's Canada. But definitely no drawing the Prophet Muhammad. Energy, it just says 100% renewable energy. Sure. Windmills for all. Windmills, we will open the Quran and flap it, and then we'll power a windmill. That's basically the energy policy. Again, this is marginally better than Trudeau's energy policy, which is purely counterproductive. Actually, it's pretty much the same. Never mind. All right, so there you go. There you are. That is the Islam Party of Canada's go-to manifesto. That is what they believe in. So, to recap, complete Sharia law as dictated by the Quran. Homosexuality will not be legal. Boys and girls in schools will be separated. You got to keep them separated. Islamic law in all things. Sex only under marriage. Banning anything fun. No gambling. No alcohol. No blasphemy. You forget about your Muhammad-flavored beers. Those are out. So, my opinion, and I know a lot of people are worried about having an Islam party in Canada. My opinion is this is actually a good thing because we can find out the number of people who support it. We can say, hey, this is an actual Islamist party. This is actual Sharia law. This is ISIS endgame. What are the difference between them and ISIS here? Let's talk about it seriously. What are the difference between the Islamic Party of Ontario and ISIS? Whether they ramble more about green energy, I'll give them that. They do not talk about mandatory hijabs or of the public and no forced conversions. So they both agree that society in itself should be completely Islamic, whatever. Whereas ISIS will force people to convert or cover up or comply with Islamic rule in life through punishment of death. They just have some nebulous sort of you should. They don't talk about forced hijab, which Iran and ISIS would do. So that's one thing they're different on. They're pretty similar in terms of Sharia law. They want a society governed in all facets based on the Quran as is literally written, supported by the Sunnah and the Hadith. That is ISIS and the Muslim Brotherhood. That is their main goal as well. So what are we talking about here? Sharia law for all. Why this is good? Because now instead of having Iqra Khalids and Omar Gabras, we have crazy people out there in front with connections to the Muslim Brotherhood. Now I want to read. A good argument was made by a friend of mine at the Post Millennial, Mika Rio. He wrote a good article. I'm going to post it on the thing. The Canadian government repeals certain blasphemy laws, but not all. And it's a good read to understand what will the new rules be of the Islamic Party of Canada. So I'm pretty big on free speech, and I don't believe that we should have any sort of blasphemy laws whatsoever. But we do have blasphemy laws on the book because that's kind of how Canada works. Is we kind of go. And laws just stay there for 150 years until we figure, let's change it. And we kind of just govern on, whatever, right? We're the country that convicted a cop for attempted murder. So Sammy Ateen, he was mentally deranged on a streetcar, held a knife to people, and then the cop took him down with lethal force when he shouldn't have. And basically he got charged for attempted murder because once he was already on the ground, he shot him with the gun. So that counts as attempted murder, even though we actually killed the guy, because it's Canada and we kind of, yeah. That's kind of how it works. But the blasphemy laws that were repealed do not actually cover the certain blasphemy laws. So I don't like this hate speech nonsense, but I do think incitement to violence should be a crime. So, I mean, I'm Jewish and I don't like it when when I see people on the internet say, the Holocaust was a hoax and the Jews just do this to control whatever, and the Jews are doing this and the Jews are doing that. I don't think any of that should be illegal. I don't like it. I'm not going to support these people, but they have the right to say it because banning them will entail something worse for everyone down the line than just letting it go down. There is another level where you say, okay, I don't like group X. We need the concentration camps to hold them, the trains to get them here. Let's go and start this genocide right now. Who's with me? That's actually a crime because you're inciting people to violence. Right? So you can commit crimes with your words. And people are silly, like, that's why we need hate speech laws. Well, no, we already have all the laws that deal with that already. Hate speech is a bit of a nonsense term. Like, you can't yell fire in a crowded theater. Well, yeah, that's actually criminal mischief, right? You also can't plan a crime. That's conspiracy, right? You can't threaten people. That's harassment and uttering threats. Like, those are also crimes with your words, right? We don't need hate speech laws. But in terms of the blasphemy laws that have been kept in place, essentially what this says is you can still incite hatred if you can ground it on religious principles. So this affects the Islamic Party. So the Islamic hate preachers can actually say, because the Quran is pretty anti-Semitic at points, you can say, I think we should kill all the Jews, Allah wants to kill the Jews because the Quran says this about the Jews. Now that is incitement to violence and hatred, but you're doing it with a Quran, so then it's protected. Right? So it's sort of like we're trying to have our cake and eat it too here, right? Either you completely ban incitement and you don't get, I don't think, I shouldn't be able to say, the Talmud says, what are the people, it's not the Talmud, the Torah, the Amalekites, yeah. At one point the Torah is just like, God's like, yeah, the son doesn't carry the sins of the father, but those Amalekites, kill them all. And there's just one point where God's like, fuck up the Amalekites. Okay. There are no more Amalekites. But if there were Amalekites in our society, and I would be like, the Torah says, kill the Amalekites, get them. Like, that shouldn't be protected because you're still trying to inspire a genocide, right? Same rules for religious and non-religious people. We need a free, secular society. So I'm going to post this article here, and it's a good one to check out because it does a good job of sort of outlining the legal framework that the Canadian Islam Party can work under.